Hi there, this is Zoe Nightingale, and you're listening to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's Creative Voice.
The nursery and all of the trees cross over the dawn, and some old parking lots hold my whimpering thoughts, and I'm on the next train. You and me, can't you see what this means? In the light of a torch, realize nothing is forced, nothing is forced, nothing is forced, nothing is forced. Hey guys, welcome to Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's Creative Voice. My name's Lee Boyle, and my guest today is Rob. Do you like to be called Rob or Robert?
Rob's fine.
Rob, and then tell him your full name and what you do, what your primary creative interest is.
Well, my name is Robert Denick Jokey. I run the Rust Belt Theater Company, which is over on Mahoning, out of the Calvin Center. We focus on locally written material. We do plays, musicals, occasionally comedy, basically whatever comes our way. We're kind of open for whatever. It's kind of like a cool little like bohemian space, you know.
Yeah.
We've been around for like 5 years now, and actually when we started I didn't think we'd be around as long as we have been, but I mean things are going well.
Good, because things are going really strong. I think 5 years with no years off, you've been doing a Christmas thing, right?
Yeah.
Called How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas, correct?
Yeah, this is actually going to be our 10th year doing that show.
Oh, 10, okay.
We did it for 5 years. Well, we did it for 6 years at the Oakland Center for the Arts, and then we just outgrew the space. I mean, in that space we could only fit about 135 people, and our biggest audience last year was almost 500. So, I mean,
Wow.
we just needed a bigger space, you know.
That's amazing. So roughly 5 years at Oakland and 5 at Calvin, more or less. Oh, great! So 10 years overall for that musical that you wrote, directed, and acted in, correct, and sang it.
Yeah, it's been a long road.
Yeah,
I can't. I mean, 10 years. I mean, I can't even. You know, I don't have very many adult relationships that I've had for 10 years. You know, but this musical's been going on, and people. I mean, the crowds keep getting bigger. You know, I mean. There are times that I'm like, well, we're just getting ready to start working on it, and I'm thinking, oh my God, do I want to do this again? But we have reservations already, you know, for the show in December.
Man.
So it's like,
great. Well, so is there anything you want to plug, like on here, that you could promote to listeners? That assuming this comes out within a certain amount of couple weeks or so.
Well, our second original musical, we try to do 2 new ones every year. We kind of like add them into the rotation of the stuff that we do annually. The next one's called My Big Fat Gay Wedding.
Okay.
And it opens in 2 weeks, also at the Calvin Center. Now we have 2 spaces there. We have the chapel, which seats up to about 120, and then we have the gymnasium, which the larger shows, like How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas.
I went to one a few years back, and I had a good time. It was awesome.
Good. I'm glad you had fun. Yeah. That's the goal. To just, I mean, the goal is to give people in the area something to kind of like escape the area a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like we live in a town that has a lot of very hardworking people, and they're people that also like to have a good time. You know, they want to laugh at something to take their minds off of their day-to-day lives, and that's what we try to do. But this show, My Big Fat Gay Wedding, is our second original one for 2015.
Wow.
And it opens in 2 weeks, and it's kind of like, It originally wasn't going to be on the season, but none of us were really expecting for gay marriage to be legalized, you know?
Yeah. Oh, so you were like, once that happened, you were like, we got to do this one.
Yeah, we were supposed to do another original musical. It was called Emily Dickinson Vampire Slayer. But I decided to go with this instead, just because it's more timely, you know?
Sure.
But it opens in 2 weeks, and it's... Eventually, what I'm hoping it's going to be is kind of like Tony and Tina's Wedding, kind of like an immersive theater experience that we can take on tour to halls and other theaters.
Oh, cool.
But right now, it's going to start off just kind of like, you know, normal musical style. It'll be in the smaller space with audiences up to about 100, 120. And it follows a middle-aged gay couple who it goes from like their engagement party to the bachelor party to the wedding to the reception, and kind of like all the bumps and along the way. But it's definitely a comedy.
Yeah.
People have a lot of fun, a lot of new music.
And this is original music in here.
Oh, yeah.
That you've written.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, I know how to make people laugh. I'm not, I'm not the greatest musician in the world, but I can make people laugh.
Same here, man. Pretty much. But okay, so what's the exact December date, just so I can time the release of this right?
The How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas is.
Oh yeah, sorry. 2 weeks from now is what date?
Okay,
exactly?
My Big Fat Gay Wedding.
Yeah.
It opens September 11th.
Okay. So September 11th, guys, go see My Big Fat Gay Wedding, and then keep your eyes peeled on you. What is there a site particularly? Calvin Center.
We just advertise on Facebook.
Facebook. So you just got to look on Facebook and
it's in the
maybe
Vindicator,
look for
all the newspapers and stuff.
Mm-hmm. So if you basically, listeners, if you search on Facebook like maybe How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas and you find that event, you'll probably find hosts of similar events if you live in the Youngstown or Northeast Ohio area, and you can go, September 11th, My Big Fat Gay Wedding, check that out, Calvin Center.
Yeah.
And then make sure you keep your eyes peeled for, of course, How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas in December.
And in October, also, we have, that's our annual Halloween show is Living Dead, the musical,
Nice.
which is a musical version of Night of the Living Dead, along with, it parodies some other, like, classic horror movies. And this will be our 4th year doing that. It changes. It's like How the Drag Queen Stole Christmas in that the plot and the music changes every year. I kind of, like, rewrite it to go off of pop culture, politics. Mm-hmm. And that's, dancing, singing, zombies. There's... one of my favorite songs from the show is called "The Slutty Girl's the One Who Gets Eaten First." It's really goofy, but that opens the 3rd week end in October, so October 16th. We do 10 shows a year. I mean, we take January and November off usually because they're just kind of like, people are busy doing other things.
I hear that about January in music in general, aside from theater, let alone theater. Like, I have a friend in the band Red, Wanting Blue, and he always expresses how he's like, the music industry shuts down at the beginning of January. It just kind of does. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that everybody's broke because Christmas just happened. Everybody's in debt. Also, around here, it's the worst time of the year weather-wise. I mean, it's cold and depressing. Christmas isn't for 11 months. So it's like people just don't want to leave their house. And I after years of wondering why nobody was coming to see theater in January, I just stopped doing theater in January, and focus on February. Everybody's ready to get out of their house by Valentine's Day, so that's what we aim for.
That's smart, man. I know, playing. I remember us playing a show at a winery at January 9th, and it was like, they were like, we just opened back up from our 2-week, we closed for 2 weeks around. And they're like, it's all right, it's going okay. It's like nobody. It is a slump in Ohio for sure, let alone the music in general. But you mentioned just a little ways before we got into listing the specific musicals that you haven't had like relationships with actual people that lasted as long as like your relationship with like theater and stuff. Like touching back on that, as a creative person in Ohio, I don't know a lot about you, and I know it's like somewhat creepy that I ask you come to my house and interview you. I'm totally aware that it's like weird, but it's a good way to get to know like other artistic people in Ohio.
Yeah.
And I assume that when you mention other people that who you glom onto or other creatives in Ohio, more or less. And so, I try to get them together for this podcast to kind of unify that voice, and maybe for whoever wants to listen, show them what creativity in Northeast Ohio looks like and sounds like, obviously through a podcast. So, I guess my question is what do you think of Ohio as a creative landscape? What do you think of everybody who finds each other as artists? Do you like this place? Do you like musicals here and theater here, or do you wish you were in LA or New York or something? You know what I mean?
Well, I went to YSU for theater, and a lot of my friends moved to Chicago and LA and New York, and I made the conscious decision to stay here. I started working at the Oakland Center for the Arts in 1999, I believe. And it was just a small gig, kind of like touring elementary schools. We would do we do about 200 shows, between 150 200 shows a year.
That's a lot, man.
It's like every day getting up and packing a tour van and going and performing in places like Big Knob, Pennsylvania for a bunch of screaming elementary school kids, you know. And I decided that I was going to do that for a little while, and going to all these little places in Northeast Ohio and Pennsylvania, it really, I don't know, performing in all these kind of like found spaces, especially. Like sometimes we would be performing in a cafeteria, sometimes we would be performing in an old library or a trailer. You know, it's like wherever they would hire us is where we would go. And I just kind of like fell in love with performing for this area. And also it kind of like, it taught me who my audience was and how to play to that audience. You know, as far as my writing is concerned, I don't know that I would be able to write the things that I do if I grew up anywhere else. You know, I don't know if I didn't live in an area that was kind of like full of, I mean, I don't like using the word blight, but I'm gonna. I mean, if I didn't see that all the time, if I didn't grow up poor, if I didn't grow up, you know, like with pretty much everything against me, I don't think that I would have the sense of humor that I do now, and I don't think that. I don't think I would know how to make something out of nothing. You know, I think if I had everything, if I had unlimited amounts of money, if I grew up that way, I think that it would be, I don't think I would be able to write the things I do.
And do you want to get into that? Specifically what you grew up with?
Oh yeah, I mean, my family was very poor. You know, like, you know, the poor house on the street with like the kids who need haircuts and they have like shoes with holes in them. That was totally us. And I mean, I will say this: we didn't really know because my mom was awesome and she never let it. My mom was an awesome mom and she just never let it. Seem like we were that poor, but I mean, like, you know, for Christmas, like other kids would be getting like new bicycles and game systems, and we were getting like coloring books and crayons. You know what I mean? And when you're little, you don't really realize that. But now looking back, it makes me appreciate her, you know, and everything she went through. But yeah, she raised 6 kids pretty much on her own, you know, and I mean, everything was a challenge, you know, everything, but it also kind of like gave me this outlook on life that you know, it can always be worse. No matter what's going on, it can definitely be worse.
Okay, well, that's a positive spin on stuff that you could have definitely taken a negative route from. And
absolutely.
And I maybe that answers what I was going to ask you next, because it sounds like it's like you're not saying like pain equals art. It's not as simple as that. You're saying more like, oh, I see what I really have and hold on tight to it and appreciate it, and that's where I make art from. And like, there are some people, especially rural like artists from places like Ohio or Midwestern musicians or whoever they are, who kind of come at it pretty darkly, and they're really great people still, I'm sure, but like they come at it a lot more from like the place of like a sacred craft, which they do not want to make light of. And it's fine, but I really like that, like, not only can you come at it from something that was once like a hard life to grow up in and make it happy, but you can write comedically like inclined music and not be like, that I'm above that, you know, because you know that stuff happens a lot in places like this. When people are artists and they're in a place with blight in it, they take themselves way too seriously sometimes.
You can't take yourself seriously. I mean, I feel like if you have to entertain yourself when you're a kid, you know, if you don't have all of these other things that money can buy, if you have to like, you know, figure out how to have fun in your backyard with like acorns and sticks. I mean, that sounds absurd, but I mean, that's like, at one point, that's my childhood. So
at one point, that didn't sound absurd to a lot. I mean, there were a lot more people that like building something with sticks outside, building a fort or something. That used to be pretty commonplace in Ohio, and it's not anymore.
Not at all.
It's kind of weird. Even for people that really don't have much money, I think there's plenty of kids that get outside, and it's great. But like, there's still like that used to be a lot easier to say. Like, it used to be like, yeah, I'll go outside and mess around and like throw acorns at the fence or like
the fort.
And then like build some fort with my cousin in the woods. Like that's, you know, that was normal, and you don't hear it quite as much. Maybe it's because of our age range, we just don't see it as much. And I hope it's still happening, but it seems like a little bit of a lost art to play with nature now, you know. But does small town Ohio, though we're, you know, Youngstown, I'm not going to act like it's nothing, it's awesome, I love Youngstown, but does the small town mentality of the Midwest influence your like writing?
It absolutely does. I know I notice things and they make me laugh, and then I usually like store them in the back of my head somewhere, and then they end up on the stage, or they end up in a song. Like I was on my way over here today, and there was this guy standing outside Little Caesars, and he's one of those, the people that hold like the sign and say, $5 pizza, come on. Well, this guy, it was this like big hulking guy with this scowl on his face, just glaring at traffic, holding this sign. It's like $5 pizza, and I couldn't stop laughing because this guy looks like, come get pizza or I'm going to kill your whole family, And I think that's amazing. And then I start to think about like, who else do they have working in Little Caesars today that they put him?
Yeah, this guy's the sunshine guy.
Yeah, this is the guy that this is the guy they're putting out there to get people to come order pizza.
Yeah,
and I can't stop thinking about that. So and that's basically my creative process. I notice something, and then it kind of like grows. It just grows in my head, and then pretty soon there's like an entire scene or an entire song that ends up in something.
That's cool. I mean, that's something I know all too well is like comedic over-analysis, which is what you sound like you're describing. Because like I saw a guy who was doing something sort of sign twirling or come by this thing, and he was doing it, and he was not quite next to, it was the funniest thing, he wasn't quite next to a building, and it was really fun. He was like far away in the middle of an intersection and like a parking lot, and I was like, that guy's not advertising a business. Like, that guy's just out there twirling an arrow. Yeah, and I made this whole story, like, kind of like what you said. I made this whole backstory in my head when I saw him for 1 second while I was driving.
Yep, and that's all you said. A couple years ago, I was driving also, it was also down 224, and there was this guy in a hot dog costume. Mm-hmm. No, it was outside the mall, but there was like there wasn't a hot dog shop nearby. He was just dressed in a hot dog costume, holding a sign, and he was kind of like also frowning. And the people in the car in front of me were making fun of him and yelling at him, and they were throwing things at him, and he kind of like huffed off down the hill over to the mall with his sign, and I could not stop laughing because just the image of this grumpy hot dog,
yeah, that's
like
awesome,
having a tantrum. And so the best part is I wrote on Facebook, "Dear Grumpy Hot Dog, I don't know who you are, but you made my day. Thank you," and I signed it or whatever. And then I get a friend request from the guy.
He found you?
That's found awesome. Me because someone else someone else shared it, and someone else shared it, and then he found me, and now I'm Facebook friends with the Grumpy Hot Dog.
That's so cool, man. See, sometimes I know people can make jokes about social media and be like, technology binds us now, or it's doing this and whatever, and like, yeah, there's some negative aspects, but I love when you can make like connections, especially funny ones, especially like just like really neat ones like that. It's just hilarious.
The only people that have problems with social media are the people that take it way too seriously. Yeah. And I mean, anybody that's friends with me on Facebook, I post all the time, all day long. I post ridiculous things.
And they're really good.
I post political things.
Yeah.
I'm always posting, and so when I see people that are like, "Oh, I need to take a break from Facebook because so much drama," and I'm like, "Do you understand what social media is? What you're calling drama is social media. That's kind of the point. What is it for? Is this just supposed to be like your family scrapbook album to put pictures? Because there are other apps for that. There are other sites for that.
No, it's there to entertain each other and be like to be like drama.
That's the point. Right. And I mean, if you're not here to talk to people and discuss things with people and make people laugh, then what are you here for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And so whenever somebody posts on Facebook and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm just letting you all know that I'm taking a break starting today," and then like 2 hours later, there's a picture of a kitten that they've posted, and then they're bitching about somebody at work, and it's I don't know. It's like how much sway are you giving this in your life that you have to stop and be like, this is a problem for me, Because I post all the time, but I post when I have time to do it, when I'm not doing something else. You know what I mean? I never really get it when people take it seriously. Yeah, even though I'm literally on there all day long.
Oh, I'm with you because they're kind of projecting a bit onto other people that they think might have the same problem as them. But some people have resolved to say like, no, this is cool. I'm actually in touch with a lot of people that I may have lost touch with, and it's really great. And like, this is my. If you're on somebody's Facebook page, that's their website. Like that's their .com. Like they're allowed to kind of be like a bit self-absorbed. Like you're obviously there to see like what's going on with Rob. I'm going to go to his like life and see what's going on.
That's my little area.
Yeah, and it's not like it's taken over real life. It's great to put the computer down or the phone down and live and breathe, and everybody makes time for that. But I think the people you're describing are the ones that don't make that time separate. Like they're just glued to it more. Well, I know you say you're on it all the time, but I think it sounds like you make a distinction that you're there, and you know when you're not.
Yes, exactly.
And some people don't. They're like, this is bleeding into my real life, and they're like, and then they turn into kind of a little bit like kind of nervous, like fear mongering about privacy.
Yeah.
And their phone books with people's addresses have existed for a long time.
I know.
Like, it's not, if someone, unfortunately, I know it's a scary thing to say, but if someone really wants to get you, they would have got you. You're safe. You're safe. It's okay. People are generally a little nicer than that. Maybe they're not like saints, but they're nicer than.
Sometimes I just want to be like, not to be rude, but you're not that interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The government doesn't care about your kitten pictures.
Yeah.
They really don't. You're not that interesting.
Yeah. And if I mention that I'm out of town, is someone going to come to my house and steal my DVD of Grown Ups 2? I don't have anything valuable here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They can do that when you're there. Your windows are made of glass.
Yeah. They can get there. If they want to get there, they will. And apparently, thankfully, we're not interesting enough for them to bother us.
Yes,
it's okay.
I remember when that clicked in my head. I was like 12 years old, and I had just watched some scary movie on TV, and I think, I can't remember what it was, but it was something with vampires. It might have been, I don't know, like The Lost Boys or something. So I remember laying in bed as a little kid, and I heard a noise, and I just watched a scary movie, and I remember thinking, oh my God, there's totally a vampire, like, in my closet, or like right behind me. And I got really scared, and then I realized I'm a 12-year-old kid. If there's a vampire in my room, it's gonna kill me, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm going back to bed, And once I realized that, it's like, if somebody's gonna get you, they're gonna get you.
At 12, that's pretty awesome, though. I feel like I realized that at like 28.
That, I was never really afraid of anything ever.
Jeez, that's
Someone
awesome.
is now going to go, they're going to be waiting for me when I get home.
Yeah, right. No, I know. But it's a good mentality to have, because I've heard people say things like to the effect of, I'm going to get a dog, I'm going to get a gun, I'm going to do this. And by all means, protect yourself. They've had a scare. They've had somebody like take something out of their garage.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, I'm not saying don't protect yourself.
Yeah.
But when I hear it, I'm like, hey, cool, get your dog, get your gun, whatever. Like, just please keep in the back of your mind, though, like, you're gonna have to take some risks in life. Like, please leave your house if you'd like to.
Yeah,
don't become a shut-in. Yeah.
Don't cover everything with armor and like lock yourself inside.
Yeah. For what? People just don't care that much to get you.
They really don't. I don't really have anything that anybody wants.
I really can't think of any of the things I have that seem valuable or way too specifically valuable to me.
Yeah.
Like, do they want my like crappy like drum set or guitar? Those things get passed around on Craigslist so much these days for such good prices. It's just kind of point is moot.
Or things with sentimental value. I mean, it doesn't. And most of the time, like when I've had things taken from me, I've always been kind of like, well, I mean, if that person went through all the trouble to steal this from me, they probably needed it more than I do,
It's almost a really sick version of Pay It Forward. It's almost like a really sick version of like, they're like, yeah, I'm not opening my doors for you to take things from me, but if you did, at some point someone may gift me something that I really need in the future.
Yeah.
And I didn't let you take it. You obviously robbed me, but at the same time, you're like, if they took a gas can out of my garage, you know what, there's probably one sitting on the road somewhere in Southside Youngstown for me to grab up, I
mean, one time, and this is years ago, the theater was doing an event, and somebody took like not a huge amount, but a significant amount of money, and at first I was furious, and I was like, I'm going to track down this person, and I'm going to, but the more I thought about it, I was like, I mean, what kind of position do you have to be in to like take money from an event that is a benefit for like a non-profit? Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's what I mean. I don't know. So I just eventually I just kind of like let it go, and what I did was I made adjustments to how I kind of like keep an eye on that kind of thing.
See, you didn't just completely get walked on. You did something protective to yourself in reaction while still reasoning with yourself like you did with the vampire.
Yeah.
Who was there, by the way. It was really there. No, I'm just kidding.
In Hubbard, Ohio.
But, no, that's good, man. So if anyone's listening, him and I are pushovers. Come take advantage of us.
Come take all of our things. We don't really have anything.
We don't have anything. That's the key to art in Ohio. You you realize through, whether it's by way of social media, whether it's by way of being scared of supernatural things, whether it's by way of grumpy hot dog, even though it didn't have to do with the point I'm making now. You learn that you kind of essentially, the beginning and end of life have nothing, so don't be scared in the middle. Just do it. Just have a good time. Nike. But yeah, I mean, that's cool. And yeah, not taking yourself too seriously, like you said, is great. And then what do you see when you look at Ohio through a religious context? Because none of us got raised insanely, like super strictly, who I've talked to so far, like Christian or otherwise. But what do you see yourself as, like, from childhood to now, religiously, if anything, if you feel comfortable answering that?
Well, I was raised Southern Baptist.
Okay.
Actually, so it was actually kind of strict.
Was it? Okay, this is good. I haven't had somebody.
Yeah, I mean,
it was.
You know, I mean, like, I have been members of youth groups where they made you burn all of your secular CDs, and that was kind of like your initiation into the group, you know. And until you did that, everybody kind of like looked at you like, oh, you know, well, this person is accepted into the group, but they haven't really cut all ties to the secular world until they, you know, burn their U2 CD. You know, I mean,
okay. I've heard about this, but I don't think I've known somebody who's really shared that with me before. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it was really rough. I mean, it was like, you know, especially like when I was a teenager, just because, you know, it's like, I don't know. Everybody's awkward as a teenager. You know what I mean? Everybody kind of like wants a group of people to fit in with. You know what I mean? And like some of the churches that I went to, it was almost, it's like they realize that, and that's how they get their congregation. You know what I mean? They get them while they're teenagers, and then you've got these people that grow up to be damaged adults, and they just kind of like open their pocketbooks into these mega churches for like the rest of their lives. Yeah. And like, I'm really happy that I kind of got out of that, but I still have friends that are kind of like involved in churches like that. And they, you know, I have friends who, I have friends that are my age that are gay and still believe that it's a sin and and try to live celibate lives because of what the church has taught them, you know. I also have friends who also left the church, but like, you know, when I hang out with them, or like if I hang out with them, if I drink with them, you know, my one friend will like break down into a weepy mess because there's like still a little piece in the back of his head, even though he got away from the church, that thinks he might be going to hell because he, you know what I mean? Because he got away from that. Yeah. And like, that terrifies me. You know, I mean, I'm really glad that I kind of like got away from it. I'm kind of glad that I, you know, had like a moment of clarity where I was like, this is bullshit. Why am I, you know, not that religion is bullshit. Yeah. Not that church is bullshit, but,
to take it that seriously.
To take it that seriously and to control people. Do you know what I mean? And to make people afraid to just be who they are it is bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah, I gotcha. And so the duality of such a thing, of like a friend of yours knowing that they're gay, but at the same time not being able to kick a feeling that they might really disagree with, that feeling of guilt that makes them cry, makes them upset, like is horrible, because it's like, I imagine that what you're describing is somebody being aware enough to be like, I'm trying to get out of this, but that guilt's just there, and I can't get, you know, that's too bad.
It's sad, because it's like, I mean, it's that kind of thing, I'll admit, has driven a wedge in our friendship, because I can't talk to some of these people about this. I get so mad, you know, because I'm like, you are an intelligent person. Why don't you know this is bullshit? You know, why haven't you figured this out yet? You know, and I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to be around people like that sometimes, because I don't understand why. I don't understand being a smart, productive member of society, why you don't realize that this is not healthy, I guess, you know. Yeah. Maybe they're thinking the same thing about me, but you know.
Well, I mean, too much structure in anything can be damaging, though. Yeah. So if it's religious structure too much, it's crazy. That kind of doubles us back to the to kind of touch on legalization of gay marriage in Ohio. What is your position on that? I'm just kidding.
I think, you know what? I think that I think people should do what they want to do. Honestly, you know what I mean. And that's I'm. It bothered me for years that it was not legal, because I find myself, see, I'm surrounded by creative people, so I very rarely bump into people that have a problem with me being gay, and when I do, I'm like, what? This still happens? You know,
it happens all the time.
I'm like, how is this a thing?
Yeah.
You know, I'm more shocked than anything, because I don't know, I've tried, my goal has always been to just try and this probably comes back from this is probably something I learned from these Christian youth groups that I was involved in. I've tried to serve as an example. Do you know what I mean? You know, to show that like not all gay guys are like creepy back alley, like glory hole. You know what I mean? I try to show people that I'm your friendly neighborhood gay. You know what I mean? I'm just
which is a byproduct. The creepy back alley dude is like a byproduct of trying to hide it
exactly.
in the Midwest.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And but yeah, I've tried to show people that over the and because I find that if somebody likes you, it's harder to persecute you. You know what I mean? If you have that example, like perfect example is my family. I mean, I'm sure there were gay people in my family over the years, but nobody ever admitted to it. Nobody was ever out of the closet. I was the first, and it was a little rough on my family. You know, I grew up hearing the word pansy and sissy and faggot all the time, you know, from people that I love, you know, from my uncles, from my from friends of the family. And then suddenly it's like I turned 18 years old, and I was like, I knew I was gay for a long time, but I turned 18, went to college, and I was like, all right, I'm gay. You know, this is well, suddenly I went to college, and I was like around other people who were awesome, creative, beautiful people who just happened to be gay, you know, and they weren't like this picture that had been painted for me as like the creepy gay villain, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, I'm kind of through pretending to be something I'm not, and I told everybody, and I like, you know, my brothers were weirded out, and like, you know, my uncle, I mean, everybody was like real, you know, was like quiet around me at Thanksgiving and stuff, but eventually they got over it, you know, they realized that, you know, I'm still the same exact person I was before I told them, same person after, you know.
That's the beauty of Ohio. You can, the people around here can take each other, sit each other down in front of each other, and like if somebody has a problem with you, or you have a problem with them, you can kind of somehow like knock each other down a peg until you're somewhere where you can compromise to an extent.
Yeah.
It seems like racism too, like is pretty big here still.
Yeah.
And like and I know, man, you bring just one friend who might be just a little bit culturally different in some way or the other to a party, you just kind of got to get along.
Yeah.
Like Ohioans are good at that. They're horrible. They're good at being really, really stubborn, but then at the same time they face up. They're not really passive aggressive. They're straightforward at least, and that makes them rude and like inappropriate.
Yeah.
But they have to actually face their fears head on, like, you know, in a lot of ways. And because I've met the guys you're talking about, they just get really quiet if I mention a friend of mine who happens to be gay or something. Yeah. They get really quiet and don't want to comment on it. I'm like, oh, come on. Can we just get past this?
Well, like back to, I mean, like even like we were talking about Facebook. It's like I'm friends with all of these people. Recently, like in the last 2 years, I've become friends with all these guys that I used to hang out with when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, like kind of like neighborhood football, neighborhood dodgeball. You know what I mean? That like those kind of people. And it's like, I know I hadn't been in touch with them for many, many years. And then last fall, my brother died. And like everybody kind of like, you know, he died really young. And like, so suddenly everybody was like back in touch. Do you know what I mean? And everybody wanted to know.
All right at once.
And it's like now, and it's interesting because like, you know, a lot of them are still very conservative, you know what I mean? A lot of them still live in Hubbard, Ohio, you know, and don't know very many black people and don't know any gay people and don't, you know what I mean? But it's like, I see them like, they see the stuff that I post on Facebook. You know, a lot of it is politically charged. A lot of it was about marriage equality. And when I see them like my status, or when I see them like start a conversation with me, you know, people that I know, they're kind of like, it's kind of like, do you ever see like when the fire station has like fire trucks and little kids can go and like check out the fire truck. It's like, oh, look at the, you can see the fire. It's like that, only like talk to a gay guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like that though, because it's like they can see, all right, it's not.
That's the way in though.
I'm still the guy that you used to play neighborhood football with. You know what I mean? That's who I am. It hasn't.
That's the way in. Yeah, it just is. Like,
and then like maybe, hopefully, in the future, you know, if they meet somebody else, they won't be so, you know.
Yeah, very slow, just
quiet,
chipping away.
Yeah.
No, I know, and I know. I mean, it shows an amount of humility that you put up with them. They're not treating you badly, but put up with them kind of like being like, it's a gay guy, you know.
Yeah.
So it's nice of you to like be like, yeah, I am, okay.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, like, I know a lot of people are, you know, political correctness is a big thing right now, but for me, I try to focus on like emotional correctness. It's like sometimes, especially when people are just like coming around to a new way of thinking, they're going to say things that, you know, might set somebody else off. But I just kind of like, I don't, you know, I don't get offended if I'm hanging out with some people and somebody makes a gay joke. I don't care. If it's a funny joke, I will probably be the first person that laughs. Yeah. You know?
And you're probably open to getting offended and moving past it, too.
Absolutely.
Like if someone has to make a few mistakes to get it right, do it. Just don't make big ones. Like, don't have people like making big mistakes where they get violent over it or take political opinions so to heart that they apply it to like something that shouldn't even be in that realm sometimes, you know. Like it's like, so it's interesting. It's like, this podcast comes off as like pretty liberal because there's a lot of creative and musical types, and that's fine, but like it's not about like if you change your views, like, you know, on like politically, like on like military issues or economical issues, and you become a Democrat, or, you know, you can being around creative people and being whatever you are just opens you up to not hating as much. That's all it does. It's not like about like, oh, we want to turn everybody into this hippie. It's just more about like, let them be around more tastes and more colors.
I like to talk to people that don't necessarily have the same views as me, because I don't know that I'm right about everything. You know what I mean? I want to hear other people's point of views. Maybe I've been thinking, it's happened before in my life, certainly, that I've been thinking the wrong thing, you know? So I try to, you know, even with things like, you know, everybody's, like all the drama about like the Confederate flag. You know, it's been like all over everything. I want to hear why you support this. You know what I mean? Maybe I have been thinking, maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. You know?
I'm open to that.
I mean,
too.
I'm usually not vocal about things unless I'm pretty sure where I stand on it. But I want to know. I want to know why you think this is okay. Because then that helps me to understand where you're coming from. You know what I mean? Like there was a guy that I got into some fights with on Facebook. And I don't delete people ever. You have to do something. You have to like spit on my mother or something for me to delete you on Facebook, you know. But there was this guy who he was coming onto my page and arguing with people, and I wanted to know what made him tick, because he was a gay transsexual. Well, transsexual is offensive. Transgender, poor guy on disability who is a Republican. And I was like, I want to know.
This guy interests me.
Yes. I was like, how does this work? How are you all of these things? And also, and it was like he was trolling it was like, defund Planned Parenthood, you know. And I'm like, what? You know, it's like, I know for a fact that you've got this going on in your life. I mean, and so I talked to him for a while, you know, because I was trying to figure out like, how on earth, you know, why do you believe these things? And I mean, eventually what it came down to is I think that he's just I think he was mentally ill is what it came down to. But I actually had to I had to delete him, you know, because he was just saying some really, not just, I'm not even talking like politically incorrect things.
No,
like
just
horrible, like clutch your pearls things, you know what I mean? But I mean, I like to, leading up to it, I wanted to know. I'm like, why do you think these things? You know,
well, it's good that you took a diplomatic approach, because it's certainly possible that somebody could be, you know, a transgender Republican who's in favor of getting rid of Planned Parenthood. All these beliefs can exist in one head, but then something must have clicked where you found out that this guy was just kind of being a contrarian mixed with like
that's
a, you know,
exactly.
like
When somebody gets to the point where you can just tell they love to argue.
Yeah.
You know, they're really there because they need to argue. They need some drama in their life. And once I realized that, I'm like, okay, you're no minds are going to be changed here.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about social media is when I have a conversation with somebody like that, I'm not necessarily trying to change that person's mind.
Right.
You can tell if you're butting heads with somebody, you can tell that neither one of you are going to give.
Yeah.
But you're not the only people reading that conversation.
Right.
You know,
right.
other people are going to read that. You know, especially like if it's a post that I know that like hundreds of people are following, and they're all reading that. One of those people. Any intelligent person will be able to sift through a conversation and be like, okay, this is what's going on here, you know, and this is what's not. Those are the people that I'm talking to, honestly, when it comes to stuff like that. I'm not, just because I'm butting heads with when I'm butting heads with somebody, that doesn't mean that I'm trying to change their mind, because I know that that's probably not going to happen.
Well, see, that's the cool thing, is that you take whatever their belief is and what they're into for, like, concrete, and you're like, okay, I just want to see if they can meet me halfway and find it. And what other people are doing to you when if they don't agree with gay marriage is they're not taking your belief for what it is. They're saying that they are trying to change your belief sometimes, and that's what's bad. Most aren't. Most people are cool with it.
Yeah.
Like these days, or at least they pretend to be, which is okay. Fine, whatever. Like maybe you'll fake it till you make it if you pretend so much, you know. Like, but yeah, it's cool that you come at it like that when you're like, hey, can I stretch your mind enough to see that we can agree on something rather than I'm going to change your one thing that I don't like about you, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, is there anything else you want to add, like any other plugs or anything you'd like to say to anybody you might know who's listening once this is published or anything like that? Not to put the pressure on, but anybody, like, you know.
No, I mean, I hope people continue to support local music and local art. I mean, that's one thing that's been pretty cool. I started working in downtown Youngstown in 1998, 1999, and to watch the art scene grow the way that it has, I mean, it's amazing. You know, it's amazing even like just watching the number of venues that someone can play at in the downtown area, you know, over the years. Watching the number of like art sales. You know, it used to be, where did you buy local artwork? I don't know. You know, and now it's like there's no shortage of organizations that have things like that. You know, and I think it's great, and I hope that it continues to grow. You know, as more people do go downtown, I hope that they continue to support their local artists, because other areas don't have nearly as much as we do. You know, even like when we're talking about community theater, you know. Some other towns don't have any community theater whatsoever. You know, in Youngstown, we've got the Youngstown Playhouse, we've got the Victorian Players, we've got the Rust Belt Theater Company, we've got Top Hat Productions in Struthers, we've got the Grange Theater in Canfield. These are all separate, thriving community theaters. You know, and I probably left some out just now. You know, and the fact that we have that many people that are able to support and promote that body of work is amazing, and I hope it continues to grow. You know, I hope that people keep going to see local bands and local theater productions and go to local art shows.
That's great, man. That's well put. And then one more thing, can you say, look, Mom, we're on a podcast? That's my little sign-off that I make guests say.
Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Thanks, man. Great interview. The time flew by. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Coming to you from the websites thirdclass.net and bullskit.com, Nursery is sponsored by the Orange Avocado, raw, vegan, gluten-free desserts. Check them out on Facebook. The Speaking of Music Show, an audio editorial program about the music of yesterday and today. See them on YouTube. Timeless Shots Photography, capturing moments for all occasions at timelessshots.com. And Leslie Cusano Photography at lesliecusanophotography.com. Cusano, that's Cusano. And find them Facebook, Leslie Cusano Photography, and Instagram, all one word, Cusano Photography. We need sponsors to fund our tours, comedic endeavors, and podcast promotions. So if you have a local organization or business and you're interested in sponsoring an episode of Nursery, email me at chlograve@gmail.com, CHLOEGRAVE@gmail.com. It's cheap, easy, and great promotion to a great demographic. Also, if you'd like to fund us with a small monthly donation, visit patreon.com/thirdclass, patreon.com/ spelled out third class. Thanks for listening.